Hello and welcome to our show, Crooked Doctors. Yep, here we are. Welcome to Crooked Doctors. Today is Friday, July 11th, 2014, and I have Josh Valinsky as my guest in the studio with me.
Hello, everybody.
Josh Valinsky is our Senior Vice President in charge of Public Relations and networking for the Association of Cable Access Producers, of which Harold Channer is the interim president. So thanks for being with us today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. And as long as we can cover the issues of crooked doctors and crooked lawyers, we are a powerhouse program.
That's right. And with two laws, we're going to show you today how to protect yourself against crooked doctors and crooked lawyers employing two laws that have been successfully used. So we're waiting for Jason Berg to call in. Before we do that, we're giving out very important information about the crooked doctors at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University. Now, the Albert Einstein, this is life-saving information for pre-meds out there in every school, because the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University recruits nationally and internationally. So I'm going to go over about 5 or 6 litigation points very quickly. For every pre-med out there, this is life-saving information, and we know that the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University is in the Bronx, and the main campus of Yeshiva University is here in Manhattan. Okay, these are crooked doctors, and I'm just going to jump right in. So what I'm going to do is just switch the camera view, and I want to go through a couple litigation points real quick. And then I'm going to show the audience what kind of information you have to protect yourself against these crooked doctors and crooked lawyers. So if you're considering going to medical school and you're applying in New York State, this is important information for you to know. And I just want to hit these 4 litigation points very quickly, okay? So I'm going to give you the big picture, and then we'll go into some of the details. Now, in my case, Yeshiva University is so corrupt, they're so crooked, that in 1994, I applied to medical school in 1993 to 1994. Yeshiva University lied to get me into the school. And they made false promises in the admissions process. In 2010, they admitted that they lied. So I kind of sort of beat this to death a little bit on my show, but it's important that this is page 364 of my criminal trial transcript. In 2006, John Scarfone, Associate General Counsel at Yeshiva University, I was named as a witness against the school, lied about me. And in 2010, the school had to admit that he lied. Okay, you getting the big picture here, Josh? It's not about my sanity, it's about their credibility, and they have none. Now, this is Dan Rizal. Okay, Dan Rizal of the law firm Sive, Paget, and Rizal. In 2005, he walked into Judge Patterson's courtroom, and during oral argument in the Southern District of New York, he claimed I got 2 hearings before I was expelled from medical school. And in 2010, he had to admit that he lied because he was asked, did Lydia Radin get a hearing? And he got the dates wrong. And he had to say, I don't know, because he has no personal knowledge. So this is during a criminal proceeding in 2010. Well, if you have no personal knowledge, what are you testifying for? How can you claim that you're annoyed that Lydia Radin has to contact you to access and correct her records, including intentional fraud in the federal student loan program, when you have no personal knowledge? So Dan Rizal of the law firm Sive, Paget, and Rizal, and I should show his picture, goes into court with Judge Patterson. This is the Southern District of New York. By the way, the U.S. Marshals know all about this. The FBI knows all about this. The police know all about this. What is this telling you about our corrupt government? Pretty frightening, huh?
Yes. Now, is he supposed to be an expert witness?
He's
Right.
he's supposed to be a Dan Rizal was. Let me come back to us for a second. Dan Rizal was.
He was an expert witness.
No, he's not an expert witness. He was a complaining witness.
Uh-huh.
He claimed that he was annoyed that I had no legitimate purpose in calling him, and he's pressing criminal charges against me, claiming that I'm harassing him. Okay, my phone calls to Dan Rizal, John Scarfone, and other school officials had a legitimate purpose. I have the right to access and correct my records. This school lied about me so much, they almost caused my death. Okay, so that would be called, and they knew what they were doing, premeditated attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They knew what they were doing. Okay, these people are not fooling around. They will kill you. They will kill you in Jersey City. They will kill you in Brooklyn. They will kill you in New York. These people are dangerous to others. So Dan Rizal went to criminal trial in 2010, claimed he was annoyed. Okay, I have and I continue to have a legitimate purpose in seeking to contact the school so that I can stop, for example, federal student loan fraud against me and federal and state taxpayers. So Dan Rizal is a liar. This is not about my...
Here is a question.
Sure.
If a witness is a liar, how quickly can the courts act to stop this?
They should have acted at trial. Judge McLaughlin should have acted at trial. He had ample evidence in front of him. When the school stipulates to fraud, we lied to get her in the school, then we lied to get her out of the school. Well, you know, when the school lied, well, of course they had a retaliatory motive. So when Assistant District Attorney Alex Spiro stood in front of Judge McLaughlin and said, "Oh, they don't have a retaliatory motive. They just want to tell you the truth." That's nonsense. They've had a retaliatory motive against me since 1994. Let me go. Oh, this is Jason. Let me grab this. Hello. Whoops. Jason will call back. Let me go back to just hitting some of these litigation points. So let me just go back to, I just want to finish the some of the big picture, because I've been talking about the details on the shows, and what I want to do is just hit some of these are like very good litigation points very quickly, so I just want to go over them. Okay, so we've got 1994, Yeshiva University's medical school lies to get me into the school. In 2010, they admitted that they lied, okay? In 2006, John Scarfone, Associate General Counsel at Yeshiva University, lied. I was named as a witness in another student's case. He claimed that oh, this should be Jason. Let me see if Jason's here. Hello. Let me put you through, Jason. Say hello.
Hello, MLN folks, and Jason Berg here from New Jersey.
Oh, okay, let me turn you down a little bit. Hold on. Say hello again, Jason.
You're sort of loud.
Go ahead. Say hello.
Hi,
You just killed. You just killed 3 flies in the studio.
No. You're good. Say hello, Jason.
Hello, all.
Okay, that's good. You're good. Okay. Thanks so much for calling in. I'm going over right now what the audience is seeing is I'm going over quickly a few litigation points for the big picture, and then we're going to jump into two laws that you can use to protect yourself against the crooked doctors and crooked lawyers. So let me just go over this real quickly. In 1994, Yeshiva University lied to get me into the school. In 2010, they admitted that they lied, and in 2006, John Scarfone, who's Associate General Counsel, lied when I was named as a witness in another student's case. In 2010, he had to admit that he lied. Okay, so in another student's case, they claimed I failed all my classes as a first-year medical school student except for Todd Olson's anatomy class. Well, that's not true.
Let me interject.
Sure.
This individual, who is a prosecutor? Are you saying he's a prosecutor or some kind of a lawyer? Isn't he obligated to be for libel?
Oh, he's obligated for perjury. He's obligated for attorney misconduct. He's obligated for executing a fraud upon the court. John Scarfone is, he's the big liability for the school. So,
but my thing is that this is years ago. I mean, if you and I did this, we'd be sent up the river so fast. Yet he's a good old boy network, and he's getting away with everything. This is totally repugnant.
I know.
It's unconscionable, and I'm going to go back to thank you for that.
The criminal justice system works at a snail pace, and I'll prove to you that. Lydia says this happened in 1994.
Correct.
They admitted they lied in 2010. Between 1994 and 2010, we had 9/11 and the total collapse of the Soviet Union. So the criminal justice system moves at a snail pace. Do you agree to that?
Well, no, I agree that the criminal justice system intentionally inflicted harm upon me. You're telling me that Detective Cologne at the 33rd Precinct here in New York and NYPD, New York Police Department, couldn't make a single phone call to confirm the facts. He admitted on the witness stand when they're having a trial to convict me. He admitted on the witness stand that he never did an investigation. So it's not that they move at a snail's pace; it's that they're evil and they really will hurt you. I'm demonstrating.
An interjection. If there's no evidence, how do you get convicted? On hearsay, on third-hand information. I mean, the whole point of a trial or any kind of well, again, if there's no jury, there's no real trial. There's no trials. But if evidence is entered and this guy couldn't prove anything, why were you convicted?
Thank you. And you just raised another really interesting question, because I keep asking my attorneys, excuse me, when you wrote the appeal, I consistently made a demand for a jury. So how the heck did I get brought in front of a bench trial in front of Judge McLaughlin when I'm saying I want a jury trial? Shouldn't have that been in my appeal? The whole thing was a miscarriage of justice.
And the bottom line here is the law of the land is the common law. And if they cannot get away from it, and New York State is more common law than anything. Anytime you look at anything with what's going on with National Labor Alliance, everything they open up is common law, common law, common law. And these guys are part of the Article 3 of the Constitution, and they are totally null court, and they should be taken out with dogs.
Judge McLaughlin's going to have a real hard time explaining this one, because I did go to a large religious group this week, and they wanted to know who's the judge that did this. So yeah, Judge McLaughlin is liable to me. He knew exactly what he was doing. Alex Spiro knew what he was doing. They all knew what they were. When Detective Cologne is coming off the witness stand, and I had hard evidence in my hands to show that he lied, and I turned to my attorney and said, "Are you going to question that detective?" Mm-hmm. And he refused. That's Michael J. Redenberg. You do not want to hire this dishonest lawyer. What I'm going to do, Jason...
May I ask a simple question? Since all the problem started with Hasidims, is this guy also part of the Jewish tribe?
Yes, he is Jewish. He's not religious. He's not ultra-religious, but yeah.
Again, it's a stereotype, but I'm Jewish too. But what I'm trying to get at is that the most important thing of anyone of any faith, you have to be true to your God, to your word, and these people are disgusting.
Thank you. And I'm glad you brought that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I wanted to know
Yeah.
if you had an attorney at that time and if you could utilize a supervising judge at that point.
At that point, I don't think a supervising judge would have helped because the fix was in.
And what about a really good attorney?
The fix was in because when I went to talk to Alex Spiro and I showed him how I was victimized by federal student loan fraud, he didn't care. He just threatened me. We're going to get you. This is how we're going to get you.
Excuse me, he threatened you?
Yeah.
And this is a civil servant threatening you as a part of the bar,
Yeah.
the lawyer thing?
Yeah,
And he
we're.
threatened you?
Yeah, and they tried to. They originally charged me with over 11,000 counts. Then they were so embarrassed when we outed them that they said, "Oh, that was a mistake." No, it wasn't, because they dropped the over 11,000 counts down to 133 counts and tried to get me to plea
What were they
bargain.
counting on? Were they counting on their little minions' toes? I mean, come on.
133 counts. They wanted me to plea bargain. Here's the essential thing they wanted me to agree to, that I would agree that I would never see my records at Yeshiva University, and then they would drop everything down to a violation, just pay $100 fine and go away.
That's
So,
extortion.
thank you.
That's extortion, and these guys should be. I'm sorry. I would like to
Disbarred.
go there and choke them, but I don't want to get my hands dirty.
Disbarred and criminally charged.
Well, disbarred and put away everything they've done. That they got at least a minimum of 20 years of misconduct. And remember, all these ethics boards are a bunch of BS because it's a good old boy network. Oh, we can't really do that because if we are honest, we're going to have to kill ourselves.
I'm glad you brought this up, Jason, because I'm going to show. I was asked this this question before, and it wasn't shown very clear before. But when I talked to a large religious group this week, I mentioned the Rebbe. Now, this is the Rebbe with the universal laws, and this is part of the Lubavitch. They go out and they hand out these handy-dandy little cards. You'll see them. And you'll see that in addition to, we have consensus all the way across the board, because in addition to doing, God's work through National Liberty Alliance, this is what the Lubavitch say. This is the 7 universal laws, and the 7th universal law is to establish an honest court and a just legal system. So in any religious group that we're talking about, we're doing God's work.
Well, I want to say, Lydia, you're a woman of tremendous courage, because for you to stand up after, with everything that you've been through, and many well-educated and renowned people have told me, there's no way that you can successfully stand up against Yeshiva University. But I know you can, because right is on your side, and the truth will prevail.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you can stand up to corrupt organizations like Yeshiva University. I'm not the only one. Remember, there are 34 students right now. And Jason, this is important, because when I reach out to them, I'm going to refer them to you and to National Liberty Alliance, because they're being, the Second Circuit is trying to shut them down. The judges in the Southern District of New York is trying to...
Well, again, they're probably trying to get them out because, their cases are too old. And that's not true, because there were cases where it was 25 years after these children were sexually assaulted, and there's no time limitation by that.
They're trying. You're correct. They're trying to argue statute of limitations. But when we reach out to them and say, "But you can invoke common law because you're a real person, you have a real injury," they're going to have to deal with it. So,
and that's and that's part of the Fifth Amendment, the due process, and and anything over $20, there has to be a trial. So all these little courts, traffic courts, and other courts are all illegal.
Exactly. So what they can do is they can invoke common law. Common law does extend to the district courts, and once they invoke common law, all this statute, the statute of limitations issues, they all go away, and you're still faced with 34 real victims of real abuse, and the school has to make restitution to these 34 students. So I'm going to be reaching out to them. They got a great big law firm, as reported in the Daily News and the New York Post. They got a great big law firm from out of town, from Minnesota, and this attorney is starting to learn how corrupt the Southern District, the district court.
Are you part of the lawsuit?
Well, I'm not sure what they're going to do, because they could consolidate. They like to consolidate claims, so we'll see.
Consolidation.
We'll see what's going to happen, because there's interesting stuff going on in my case. But what I want to do is I just want to get through these 5 litigation points, and then I'd like to show the audience what they can learn. With 2 laws, you can protect yourself against the crooked lawyers and the crooked doctors, and this is important information for our audience to learn. So let me go to the important litigation points.
It's very sad, These people will give you warnings and drop leaflets on you with warnings, and that will be a basis for justice from their point of view.
It's tragic that this is a school that doesn't alleviate suffering. This is a school that causes suffering.
And isn't it true that the Yeshiva University is $1 billion in debt? They can't even get rid of their properties because they're slumlords?
According to the New York Post and to the Daily News, in addition to everything else, they may be going out of business in 2015 because they can't. They've been they can't raise the operating expenses to keep the school going because they've mismanaged the finances so badly. They robbed they pilfered from their endowment, and yes, according to news reports, they're about $1 billion in debt, and Moody's downgraded their debt to junk status, and they put out an advisory, according to the New York Post and the New York Daily News, and according to Moody's, that said they warned creditors from extending any credit to this school. So yeah, they're just under the guise of we're such a nice religious school. No, you're not. You're a criminal entity. You bear false witness against your neighbor. You violate the 10 Commandments. I mean, what? You almost
violate the common law.
Yeah, you violated common law. You violated man's law. You violated God's law.
And more so, I think to the audience, we're not talking anti-Jewish. We're just talking about the principles, because again, Christianity and Muslim religion based on that. And you have to be forthright. And there is a book called Ethics of the Fathers. I think, and it goes about what all the rabbis talk about. They must have missed that in their education courses on ethics.
Well, I don't see how we could be anti-Jewish when we're trying to establish honest courts and a just legal system, which every religious group can agree to. I mean, it's unfortunate that the perpetrators of the crime happen to be Orthodox Jews at Yeshiva University, but that's not our problem, because at any point along the way they could establish restitution. They could give, they could provide me with restitution. They could give medical school students fair hearings. They could undo all of this. They don't.
I mean, as a Jewish man, that's a very unfortunate situation that they always befuddle and confuse everyone by bringing up anti-Semitism. That isn't the issue. The issue is that a great injustice was done to Lydia Radin, and she's doing everything with her power to overcome it and to get justice.
And to change the system so they don't do it to anybody else.
And it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
Thank you.
But that's a game that they play again and again and again.
Well, again, that's the whole thing of divide and conquer. You can't. It's like if you You can't question the state of Israel. Now, let's just put it this way: it's not the anti-Semitic. The word Semitic means well on language. I would call it anti-Jewish because language has nothing to do with Judaism, because in that area, the Arab language and the Hebrew language are connected.
Yeah, it's not anti-Semitic, to tell the truth, but that's the great silencer. Everybody lives in fear of being labeled as an anti-Semite, so you can't say anything. But Israel criticizes America all the time.
That's okay. But we can't criticize Israel.
It makes no sense. Why should this is our country, and we should fight for our country as much as well. Personally, I don't think that the response to the atrocities of World War II were addressed by stealing land from the Arabs and creating more atrocities that are not reported in America. Like,
but also the irony of World War II is both sides never really took care of the genocide that was perpetrated against the Jews and the Christians, because again, Van Braun, part of the paperclip expedition, were given away. Their crimes were forgiven, and some of them were sent back to Germany. But these people were part of the Cold War, which was actually created by the Germans, the Nazis, to try to divide the Allies.
Yep, playing people off against each other is a technique that's used. So let me go through these litigation points, and then what I'd like to do is put weapons in the hands of innocent people out there so they can defend themselves against the crooked doctors and the crooked lawyers, and that will be very easy to understand. So let me go to, let me just go through the litigation points, because I was asked questions about them, so I want to make sure I address the questions. So I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, and then I'll elaborate some more in upcoming shows. In 1994, Yeshiva University lied. They fraudulently induced me into entering their medical school. In 2010, they admitted that they lied. Okay, so there's no statute of limitations issues. It was a fraud upon the court and a fraud upon me, and fraud vitiates all proceedings.
And a consumer fraud, too.
Yeah, that's consumer fraud with thank you, Jason. That's very insightful. It's consumer fraud with the federal student loans, and I can prosecute them. And if the U.S. Attorney's Office does not pick up on the case, I'll prosecute them on behalf of the federal government for the Pell Grant, and I'll prosecute them on behalf of the state government for the state grant. So we got through the first litigation point. In 1994, the school fraudulently induced me into entering their medical school. Yeshiva University fraudulently induced me into entering their medical school based on false promises in the admissions process. They claimed to support student research 100%, and they admitted in 2010 there was a stipulation that the College of Medicine refused to support. There was absolutely no support for my research project, despite the College of Medicine's promises that they support student research 100%. In 2006, I was named as a witness against the school. John Scarfone was, perhaps still is, I have to check. John Scarfone is Associate General Counsel at Yeshiva University, and in 2010, they had to admit that he lied. He claimed in 2006 that as a first-year medical school student that I failed all my classes as a first-year medical student except for Todd Olson's anatomy class. And the school and the district attorney's office had to admit in 2010, and this is reflected in my criminal trial transcript, they had to admit that they lied, that I did not fail all my classes as a first-year medical school student except for Todd Olson's anatomy class. That was a lie. In 2005, Dan Rizal and I were in federal court in front of federal judge Patterson, Robert P. Patterson Jr., and the U.S. Marshals know all about this. In 2005, Dan Rizal lied at oral argument, and he claimed that I got 2 hearings before I was illegally expelled. And in 2010, he had to admit that he lied, that he didn't know if I got it. This is the gist of his testimony, because the testimony was so bad. but the gist of his testimony was he had to admit he didn't know whether I got hearings or not. He couldn't have known because he had no personal knowledge. So if you have no personal knowledge, what are you testifying to? Okay, he claims that he's being annoyed because I'm being forced to contact him and the other attorneys. I'm being told by Chairman Ames, for example. Chairman Ames was a chairman of a department at Montefiore. Just give me one
So
second.
you got 2 non-existent hearings, according to him. That never happened.
He doesn't know. There were
Complete fabrication.
there were no hearings. They can't even prove that there was a hearing. And he's claiming to be quoting that. Well, this is what the records say. The records are falsified. That's what I've been telling them. So the attorney for the school is testifying to what? Dan Rizal is a liar, and he knows he's lying. And here at criminal trial, the documents that show that he's lying on the witness stand, the documents from the liaison committee for medical education were deliberately not given to me in the crime, or my attorney, in the crime of obstruction of justice. I did not agree to go to criminal trial with some edited, truncated version of records so that Dan Rizal could lie on the witness stand. That's just another lie that was told, because when I got out of prison and I realized they obstructed justice, and they did, that I can still make a list of documents that they have not provided in response to a valid subpoena, so you don't convict me, the innocent victim, when the school obstructs justice. Okay, so that means go ahead.
Too big to, it's like that saying, too big to fail. I mean, everyone. I'm just so appalled that this has been going on for so long, and they're going around free as a bird. And 2.4 million people are in jail for the BS statutes that they shouldn't be filed against.
And you know, another very strange thing is that if I was told that Lydia was given 2 hearings, the first question out of my mouth would be, what were the results? And the decisions at the hearings.
There were no hearings. It was just not. It was nonsense. It was a meeting.
But being a friend of yours, I would want to know the results. And were they in your favor?
There were no hearings. I had to fight for a year and a half just to get a meeting. And then I was required to stand out in the hall while in a meeting room my professors gave false, unsworn testimony against me. I wasn't allowed to be in the room while my professors.
But that was in a hearing.
That
was a Nazi trial.
It was a kangaroo court. That's not a hearing. And they admitted this when Marlene Abramova contacted me. This was a Russian girl. A Russian girl from the Russian community, from the Russian Jewish community. She named me in 2006 as a witness against the school, and I said, listen, you got to start talking about how your civil rights were violated, and you didn't get a hearing. In this case, in her case, the school had to admit that she was not permitted to cross-examine witnesses against her. I'm like, hey, numbnut, if you're not permitted to cross-examine witnesses against you, guess what? It's not a hearing.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's a facade of justice, and justice. It's like.
It's a lie. It's fraud. They're nothing but a bunch of shysters. And then they had to admit, and I showed this before, and I'll show it again, and then they had to admit that there was no certified verbatim transcript. So I'm like, you couldn't do it.
Even do that. I mean, oh, God. So technically speaking, with all this fraud, you can actually run away with the entire property of Yeshiva University. I think you should do that. Take the property over. You'll be the best landlord in the world.
You know what's funny about that? I should just sue Yeshiva University and take all their property. You know what's funny about that? I'm glad you brought that up, Jason. What's funny about that, and I say this in my landlord-tenant work, is that it's the tenants that keep the community together. In Jersey, there's something called the New Jersey Apartment Owners Association, and they've got on their website, they're the worst people ever, they lie like thieves, but they, and all of us in the Tenants Association laugh at them. They've got on their website, the last time I checked, they have a logo from like Lowe's and Home Depot and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's not the landlords that create the jobs. It's not the landlords that want to spend their money to invest in the buildings. It's the tenants that demand it.
That's right.
It's the tenants that demand our rent should be used to, we have to fight with the owners of the building to maintain their investment.
Yeah.
The only thing they do is they suck the rent money out. They allow the building to decay until the building itself becomes a weapon. It's the tenants that create the demand for building materials. It's the tenants that create the demand for licensed union labor because we want good work done. The union should be supporting us, the tenants. The Home Depot and Lowe's should be supporting us, the tenants.
Well, again, it's who's got the money and who's got the connections. But the real thing here is that in Newark, they just defeated an ordinance that would permit landlords to to charge capital improvements onto the tenants, and they won that case.
Yeah, because
and
now the
Eric,
buildings.
Martindale in Newark.
And thank you, Jason, because what happens in Newark is after 30, 40 years, the buildings are decayed. Now the landlords are forced to do something and they want to charge the high rents. So they're going to try to misconstrue, lie, and try to slough off what, they have a duty to maintain the buildings and make repairs. They've neglected their duty for decades, and now they try to misconstrue and claim it's a capital improvement when it's not. But thanks, Jason. Go ahead.
But the thing is, you're not responsible for capital improvement as a tenant. That's their responsibility because a maintenance and upkeep is the landlord's responsibility. Because how can you live in a building that is falling apart or has health violations or code violations?
Exactly. So this is the way the crooked lawyers and the crooked doctors lie. So let me and that's one of the reasons why I got involved, was because when they can't get you civilly and they can't get you criminally, then they start attacking you at your home, and you're subjected to all these these frivolous lawsuits by your landlord. This is just a technique to get at you at what other means they have. So let me just go to let me just go and finish the litigation points real quick, and then I'll show you how you can protect yourself, because we got about 20 minutes left. So 1994, they lied. They admit they lied in 2010. 2006, they lied. They admit that they lied in 2010. 2005, Dan Rizal lies. They admit they lied in 2010. In 2005, and I won this litigation point, so you'll be pleased to hear this. In 2005, with Judge Patterson, Judge Patterson didn't even write this stuff, it was written for him. In 2005, Judge Patterson claimed that I would have to cite a school policy for a former student to access and correct their records. It's just nonsense. I've been through this on my show.
Again, they're creating laws from the bench, which is illegal. And the point is that you have a right. They didn't pay for your education. You paid for your education. Everything that is in that file is yours.
Exactly. What they admitted in 2009 and 2010, thanks to Rob Kozowski and the good people at the Nassau County Civic Association, the school admitted that, yes, they did have a policy whereby current and former students could access and correct their records. So the defendants themselves in 2009, 2010 submitted affidavits in the run-up to the farce of my criminal trial, and they admitted, and I will show this because I put this up on a blog site before I had access to public access TV. The defendants, the school admitted that they had policies whereby current and former students could access and correct their records. So my question to Judge Patterson and his colleagues in the Second Circuit and the U.S. Marshals is, well, when the defendants claim they actually have a policy and they admitted that they lied in 2005 when Judge Patterson said, oh, Her amended complaint can point to no school policy that would allow a former student to access and correct the records. That's just nonsense. You made that up. You tried to legislate from the bench, and you claimed that there was no policy. They just fabricated. They misconstrued. There's no policy. You didn't even have to know the law. It defies simple common sense. Judge Patterson doesn't sit up on the bench and say, oh, yes, as a former student of Columbia University's law school, he, as a former student, could not access and correct his records. So when the defendants admitted that this was a fabrication, I asked Judge Patterson and the Second Circuit Court of Appeals to return my case to Judge Patterson to expand and correct the record so this fabricated ruling could not be used to hurt other students in the future, and they refused. So now I'm suing Judge Patterson personally. And he can be dragged through the court system, and he can get up there in front of a jury, and he can explain why he legislated from the bench. So when John Darash says things during the National Liberty Alliance that it's okay, no, it's not okay. The judges cannot make things up. That's called legislating from the bench, and they cannot do it. That's unconstitutional. So if they don't have a statute, then you would have to invoke by a common law. You would have to use simple common sense, okay? So the judges cannot just make stuff up. That's wrong. And in my case, they made stuff up. They fabricated a ruling. They legislated from the bench. That's unconstitutional. And when the defendants admitted that what happened in court in 2005 was wrong, the judges are obligated, and they have the ability to correct their mistake of their own volition. And they should stop playing games, because there are no statute of limitations issues when the judges themselves are responsible for the fraud they perpetrated on me, and fraud vitiates all proceedings. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. Well, again, it's perplexing. If all these stuff is coming out and admitting to the deceit, why aren't you being made whole? I mean, isn't I know in the common law you're supposed to have a remedy and the person's supposed to be made whole. I mean, the whole point of our legal system is a sham on the people. I'm not for violence, but again, they make you want to explode with their contempt for that. They are our civil servants. They are now our uncivil disservants. They are there to be the best and to follow their oath of office and their bonds of office. And if they don't have bonds of office, they become personally responsible for their illegal litigations.
Well, that's a very good weapon that Jason has given us. Judges take oaths to uphold the Constitution. So when, as in my case, you can demonstrate, and we'll be doing more of this next week, when I can demonstrate in the Eastern District of New York right now, I gave them enough rope to hang themselves, but when I can demonstrate that federal judges refuse to provide me with equal protection of the law and then misconstrue, because right now I'm dealing with a federal judge when it's not a matter of bad faith or malice, but when the judges violate the 14th Amendment, they can be removed from office. And then what John would like us to do in the National Liberty Alliance is to drag them through due process before we put a lien on their property. And once you put a lien on their property and force the sale of the judge's property to provide restitution.
I'm thinking out loud now. Do you ever recall a case where a very good lawyer said in the courtroom, Your Honor, you are legislating, you are creating laws, and that's unconstitutional? I don't recall a case like that where a very good lawyer made that remark, that you're legislating from the bench, Your Honor, and that's unconstitutional.
Correct. So they cannot just make things up. You can hold them to their oath, and when they violate your constitutional rights, then you can constitute a common law grand jury. You can drag the judges in front of a jury. you can get a judgment against them, and then you can force the sale of their property once you've dragged them through due process, if they choose not to make restitution, and you can force the sale of their property. That's why, in my case right now, they're doing everything they can to hide what they're doing because they don't want people to know the weapons they have. And Mr. Mikey Weinstein, the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, could have done this, but he's a coward and a liar. I'm sure he's going to come after me. But what I want to do very quickly is I want to show the two ways that you can protect yourself against the crooked lawyers and the crooked doctors. So here's some more weapons in your arsenal to protect yourself. So let me just go to this. So we discussed this a little bit before the show, and I've shown this before, but I'm going to show it again. Just one second. If you need to protect yourself against crooked lawyers, you can protect yourself. Now, if you're out there in the viewing audience, you can Google this, okay? You can protect yourself against crooked lawyers with New York Judicial Law, Section 487. This governs misconduct on the part of attorneys during a proceeding. So if you Google this, you can hold the dishonest lawyers accountable, and they have to pay you triple damages. So you don't get upset when the attorney lies or when the judge lies. You just go after them for triple damages.
Well, you should start doing that, dear. I think you're going to be the wealthiest woman in the United States.
Well, what I'd like to do is have the Center for Protection of Innocent Persons, and then anybody who stand up and tells the truth, like the good people in the Nassau County Civic Association, not just Rob Kozowski, but everybody, and they come after you and they retaliate against you, you always know that there's a place for you to go where you'll be safe, at the Center for Protection of Innocent Persons. So this money, their evil is going to be turned into good. But you can protect yourself against the crooked doctors by invoking New York Education Law, Section 6530. This governs misconduct on the part of physicians, specifically subsection 16 and subsection 26. Now, I'm pleased to report, Jason, that in Brooklyn, not only did I invoke my right here, and not only did I lay a foundation in the federal court, but there's a gentleman associated with National Liberty Alliance in Brooklyn, and he cited to my case, and he successfully exercised his right, and he's following up to make sure that the crooked doctors didn't create a bunch of false medical records when he said no. If they are trying to perform professional services that have not been duly authorized by him, the patient, he will go after them and he will sue them. So he's checking now to see if they created a bunch of false records on him. So let me show this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the camera view to our Skype computer. Oh, this is Mr. Mikey Weinstein over at Military Religious Freedom Foundation, who attacked generals, claiming there's a great big wall of separation, church and state, and there isn't.
Wait, there isn't. Totally. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that. And for the last 50 years, close to 50 years, they've been saying, separation of church and state, you can't pray. That's all a lot of hooey. And it's been proven, and a lot of people have been damaged.
Yeah. So when Mr. Mikey Weinstein says right here, he's like, help build the wall. What wall? There's no wall of separation of church and state. We're not a godless country, and we're also not a democracy. We're a representative republic. That's why we're concerned about the rights of the minorities, because we don't run roughshod. If we were a democracy, it would be just tyranny of the majority, and we wouldn't care about the rights of minorities. We are a representative republic, and Mr. Mikey Weinstein, as an attorney and as a graduate of the United States Air Force, he knows better. We'll get back to him in a minute.
Well, he's also took an oath to uphold the Constitution against foreign and domestic enemies, things that he needs to be self-inflicted wound to the head.
Okay, you're not threatening violence, Jason.
No. I said self-inflicted wound to the head. Am I inflicting it? No, that's him just saying that. Hello, meet me at my desk.
No, you're not threatening anybody with violence. You're
No,
just...
I'm not.
Okay.
It's self-inflicted. How is it violence? Violence is when you hurt someone else. So you hurt yourself. Is that violence?
Okay.
No, it's just self-defecation.
I think it would be better if we just told the truth and Mr. Mikey Weinstein could correct himself and stop attacking generals and go after the real enemy, which we tried to help him with, which was the crooked courts. And when he tried to help Valerie Plame Wilson and they lied in that case, he should have gone after the federal judges and he would have been much more productive. And that's really a better use of Mr. Mikey Weinstein's time rather than going after some generals. But we'll get back to them in a minute. Let me show, this is New York education law, section 6530. This defines, and this is what the audience is seeing now, these are the, this is the statutes that govern physician misconduct in New York. So if you're out there in the viewing audience and you want to protect yourself against crooked doctors, you would invoke New York State Education Law, Section 6530. Now, this is the best piece of information I can give you because right down here in subsection 16, it says that they are required, they cannot claim ignorance. They were required, and I'm going to read subsection 16 right now, they are required to comply, just one second, here we go. A willful or grossly negligent failure to comply with substantial provisions of federal, state, or local laws, rules, or regulations governing the practice of medicine. So they can just not ignore any of this. Okay, the doctors must comply. Because it's professional misconduct if there's a willful or this is subsection 16, if there's a willful or grossly negligent failure to comply with substantial provisions of federal, state, or local laws, rules, or regulations governing the practice of medicine. So these doctors are required to know subsection 26. They cannot perform professional services which have not been duly authorized by the patient. So when they, for example, at Rikers Island were cooperating in an organized criminal conspiracy to try to defame me, claiming that there was something wrong with me when there wasn't, and they claimed they were providing me with treatment, they were not providing me with treatment because I did not consent. It's not about them filling out a form.
And that word consent is in the court, and that's our power. When you disconsent them, they have no authority over you, and they are abusing you, and they have kidnapped you, they have put you in jeopardy, and put you in your mentally and physically. So these people need to be served very hard. We're supposed to have compassion. But when you draw first blood, you have no innocence.
Ah, yes, they certainly did draw first blood. They certainly did. And they performed professional services which have not been duly authorized. They wasted your tax dollars and mine. They inflicted all kinds of... They do not alleviate suffering. They inflicted suffering. So I also wanted to just bring the audience's attention to, here we go. This is New York Judicial Law, Section 487, which governs misconduct by attorneys. So again, you don't get upset when they lie, when an attorney is guilty of any deceit or collusion, or if he or she consents to any deceit or collusion, they're guilty of a misdemeanor, which is a crime. In addition, they forfeit to you, the injured party, treble damages. So you don't get upset. You just have them disbarred. You name them in a civil action, you get triple damages, you put a lien against their property, and you force the sale of what they have. So that's how, these are some of the things you can do to protect yourself against the crooked doctors and the crooked lawyers. So let me come back to us.
Yes, have to come back to us.
You wanted to do your good friend, City Councilwoman Helen Rosenthal, a favor.
Yes.
And you wanted to help her. Now, we're not the only ones fighting the good fight.
Yes.
Jason's doing the best he can to establish honest and just courts
Thank you, Jason.
in Jersey.
And I also appreciate you as an advocate of common law, which is very essential in trying to reestablish democracy.
Yeah, and I just want to know, we're going on. We met in October, and it's so glad that it was a full circle with NLA going through with stuff. You do your announcement. I'm sorry.
No, Jason is working with the National Liberty Alliance, and if they have a free Monday night conference call from 9 to midnight, if you Google National Liberty Alliance, and if you sign in as a user with an email, there's a lot of free information where you can educate yourself with on common law. They do test you so you can measure whether you've mastered the material. So you can start invoking common law, but I'd like to caution the audience, you just don't go out there and template stuff. You will have to learn, and all the materials are provided for free. So you can teach yourself, and they will provide you with quizzes and tests so you can test yourself.
Very good.
So you don't just go out there in a courtroom and start doing stuff. And I would encourage encourage the viewing audience to register with National Liberty Alliance and use their free self-help materials, some of which were classes that were sold on the internet for several $100s. They're very good material.
Lydia, I think you should focus on this for a minute.
Okay. Not only, thank you so much, not only is Jason fighting the good fight, not only am I fighting the good fight, but City Councilwoman Helen Rosenthal is fighting the good fight against crime and corruption.
Yes.
And she is providing a very special free housing clinic. And we promised her that we would, we promised her office, and we also promised Ann Cunningham and Gail Brewer's office that we would we would tell our audience about this event. So there's a lot of us who are working towards trying to do the right thing.
And also check out the front page of yesterday's New York Times. Helen Rosenthal is mentioned in drafting new legislation against landlords perpetrating harassment on elderly tenants. And that's the front page of yesterday's New York Times.
So we in the about minute and a half that we have left, and I actually met Helen Rosenthal. She loved everything we did in Jersey. I actually talked to her legislative aide, and he'd be willing to help us amend New York law so that tenants can collect attorney's fees too. And she is doing an upcoming event at the Goddard Riverside Community Center. So if you're in Manhattan, if you're in New York, if you're in Brooklyn, and you want to learn more about SCREE, SCREE is the benefits that you get if you're a senior citizen so that your rent does not go up, it's stabilized. And DREE is the rental assistance programs, thank you, for disabled people. If you come to this, you can, you'll attend a lecture by the attorneys from the Urban Justice Center. But even better, you can have a private consultation. These are free attorneys from the Urban Justice Center. You can sign up and you can sit down and talk to them about your specific issues. So if you want free legal help, and it doesn't just have to be about SCREE and DREE, please come to this event.
Yes, and we'll continue in October.
Oh, good. Excellent. So, Jason, let me just change the camera view, come back to us. Do you want to say goodbye to our audience?
Thank you, audience, for another great show. Everyone is part of the cause. Everyone needs to be part of something. Join us again next week and join National Liberty Alliance. It's in your power to take control back from our unclean, uncivil disservice. When we do this, we'll have justice, truth, justice, and fair play back in our courts, and everyone can live in harmony. Well, until then, we'll have this chaos we call this life.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. And that's our show. That was very good.